Thank you everyone for joining us today. So this is episode 2 of Let's Talk Mates, which is Solent Mind's new ongoing kind of men's mental health chats. We're looking at releasing these monthly. We'll be talking about a different topic each month in relation to men's mental health. Today we're talking about sports and mental health, or kind of exercise and mental health. You know, the benefits that can potentially have for people's mental well-being or our recovery. So for those who kind of joined us in the first episode last month, obviously we have a few new faces with us today. So we'll start off with a little round of introductions. So my name's Rob Eamey. I'm the community peer recovery team lead for Solent Mind here in Portsmouth. For my own kind of recovery as well, that regular exercise has formed a really important part of my ongoing recovery plan, especially kind of getting active. I just kind of go into the gym a few times a week, a little bit of running here and there. That one little kind of extra little thing, just to kind of, especially when I wasn't working, to, you know, to give me that motivation to get up and get going. Harrison, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Harrison. I currently live in Southampton. I've just finished a master's in sports broadcasting, which is where I produced Breaking the Cycle, a documentary focusing on men's mental health and how cycling can benefit your mental health. I unfortunately innocuously dislocated my knee just before the start of the first lockdown, and just felt myself, well, I was just inside all the time doing nothing, and I felt like I needed to find something to help me manage and help me cope. So I started cycling, and I haven't looked back. It's been one hell of a journey that has helped me teach myself a lot about kind of the stuff I've been going through, and also learn from other people as well. I think that's the key lesson I've learned over this period, is just stopping and listening to other people, just really giving me the kind of help that I needed to get my confidence back.
Brilliant, thank you. Steve, do you want to go next?
Yeah, hi, my name's Steve Johns. Recently been working with Solent Mind as a service manager. Interestingly, one of the jobs I had was working with dementia clients in Portsmouth. And you'd think, you know, sport and dementia clients, and you think of old people, but tremendous work going on in somewhere like the Mountbatten Centre in Portsmouth with people with dementia and Parkinson's. So it's not just a young person's thing. Sport for me has always been there, really, from an early age, and then I joined the army. So, you know, army and sport sort of go together anyway. But I've always felt the benefits of sport in my life. We can go on to talk about that in greater detail. But yeah, I think it's for everybody, male, female, you know, whatever age you are, the benefits are fantastic, I think. And it's really helped me in my mental health.
Thank you, Steve. And Lachlan.
Hi, yes, my name's Lachlan. I am an outreach coordinator working mainly within iTalk, the iApp service. And I'm relatively new back to Solent Mind. I have worked for Solent Mind previously in a different role. But basically the main focus of my role is finding ways to make the service more accessible to all sorts of different groups that maybe are finding it a bit harder to access the service at the moment in its current form. From a personal perspective, I take a real interest in exercise. For me, it was absolutely pivotal in my recovery and kind of ongoing maintenance of my depression. Particularly kind of starting about 3 years ago, when I took up running again. I had been quite an avid runner when I was younger, but it sort of fell by the wayside in the way that I think it does for quite a lot of people in my early 20s, and then I didn't really do anything for about 10 years. So I'm quite evangelical about running, to be honest. I have to remember to rein myself in sometimes a little bit, but yeah, I'm a huge advocate of the benefits of exercise for mental well-being overall.
Yeah, so getting into it, obviously, as we kind of touched on earlier, so, you know, we really wanted to kind of have a look at, you know, what some of the benefits there are around, you know, getting active, getting involved in exercise. We're not saying everyone has to go out and, you know, join a sports club or join a gym or kind of, you know, run 10 miles. You know, it can obviously, you know, little steps each, you know, as much as appropriate. If you've not run for a while, don't try and go run 10 miles because you will feel it afterwards. So yeah, so I thought maybe we'd get started by talking about some of the maybe some of the personal examples from our lives where sports and exercise, getting active, it's really has a tangible benefit on our mental health.
I've struggled with depression and anxiety for 11 years now, since I was 13. And I particularly struggled back in probably late 2019, so pre-pandemic. I took months off work, didn't leave the house, and then I dislocated my knee, and then I had another couple of months out staying at home because I actually couldn't move. And then the pandemic came, and I was defeated at that point. And I decided to pick up cycling then a couple of months into the pandemic. And it just gave me this great sense of adventure and gave my life some sort of purpose at the time, because there wasn't anything to focus on. There wasn't anything to do. It was very much just stay inside. Cycling ended up being such a useful tool to me. I was out almost every day and cycling around my local area, quickly racking up all of the miles. And I was meeting people along the way who had these amazing, fascinating stories about how they've overcome such difficult periods in their life. And I decided to kind of carry that on and learn more about other people. And look, cycling and sports, it isn't for everybody, but I never thought it would have the impact that it did for me. And I'm glad to say that now I'm in such a better place. I'm not cycling every day now, as things are back to normal, but I do treasure going out on the bike and getting some fresh air and just relaxing and just enjoying myself, really.
Harrison, I think you're either a runner or a cyclist, aren't you? Really? I do running as well, along with Lachlan, so you're outnumbered.
I used to be a runner, but then
it's the knee.
Both knees now.
All right.
But I reckon I could still, if we organise a charity race one day, I think I might have run you both.
Thanks, mate. I think for me, Rob, it was sort of it was the transition from the army into civilian life, which I know Solent Mind are trying to do, a lot more of that for the veteran side. But it's such a big transition because the military is such your routine's all there all the time. You haven't got to think for yourself, and then you come out to the big wide world and you think, crikey, how do I get a job? And depression really does set in very quickly. I just think, and I know, as you just said, you don't have to join a running club or a cycling club, but just to have some people around you in a running club or something, and not everybody's doing, massive sprints or long distances. I think in clubs you find your own level, and they really cater for you. If you're just starting off, they'll understand. I think it's just, for me, it was just that first step. Right, I need to go meet people. I need to talk to people. I don't want to be isolated in my life. I just want to go and mix. And I think once you've made that first step, I was okay then, So it's just having people around me, really, as Harrison was saying, people, like-minded people who want to do a bit of cycling or something, would be great.
Not everybody is going to feel comfortable talking about their mental well-being in the context of a club or a group run or something, but it's something I chose to be quite open about early on when I first joined Eastleigh Running Club, and I certainly found people were very welcoming and understanding, and it led to conversations that maybe they hadn't had before. Because I was being open and comfortable talking about it, they felt able to have those conversations as well. Running was kind of interesting because it wasn't a social activity for me at the beginning. It was something that came a bit later, and I think that is kind of the power of exercise in some ways. It can support you through the whole process of recovery. So in the first instance, I almost didn't realize how unwell I was, but I knew that I felt very low and I needed some kind of project, something to focus on, something to start to build a bit more self-esteem and self-confidence. and it was kind of through running, and then you get that endorphin high as well. And it was odd because it's like I realized that I'd almost forgotten what it felt like to feel good in a physical sense, like in my body. And to have that physical high, it was nice because it felt like my body doesn't, I'm capable of feeling good. I just need to find ways of making that happen more sustainably. So it kind of gave me a bit of hope that I could make some changes and that it was achievable. I didn't have to feel so terrible all the time. And so on the basis of that, I then sought further help, got into therapy, and then I started thinking about broadening out and how can I incorporate other things that are going to be good for my well-being, and use running as a way, as an avenue into that. So finding ways to make it sociable, to connect with other people. And that's where joining the club came in, for example. That is a really good thing about exercise. As I say, it can kind of support you wherever you are in that process of recovering and opening up and finding ways to improve your well-being.
So yeah, I've been living with anxiety and depression for a number of years now. Probably longer than I realise, if I'm completely honest. So around about 2014, I had quite a shall we say a breakdown is probably the easiest way to term it. I lost a job unexpectedly, and that kind of tipped me over the edge a little bit, shall we say, because there was already some other stuff going on. And yeah, I ended up being kind of signed off sick on disability benefits for a number of years. I was going through kind of therapy, different kind of therapy groups, and and accessing peer support groups. And I always tried to keep myself quite busy. I did a lot of volunteering, but that wasn't a full-time job, and they often be kind of like big stretches, where I didn't have anything going on. And yeah, so around about that time, I kind of, I found myself, I ended up joining a gym, and it has been, and I think, as Steve kind of you alluded to earlier, something to focus on as well, especially, rather than just kind of sitting at home with my own thoughts and kind of stewing on things, just, taking myself off and getting invested in an hour in the gym, or, I do a little bit of running here and there, but not for over a year, so I'm sure you could all kind of leave me in the dust, injuries or no injuries. And, I still do it today, not as much as I would like to. Going back to work has kind of eaten into the time I have for it, obviously. But Lachlan, you touch on something quite interesting as well in there, in terms of, how it kind of helps with building the confidence. And that kind of sparked something in my head. So I struggle, as I mentioned, I struggle with anxiety. And for a number of years, I've always had some issues in my head around, just generally confidence in myself, whether it's kind of how I look, how I come across to people, and yeah, I did find, actually, the more I'm active, the more I'm engaged in kind of things like, running, exercising, or even kind of fencing. When I used to belong to the university fencing club, those kind of things, I look back at those periods where I've been more active, and my confidence has always been that bit higher.
You just get a sense of achievement. I went for a run this morning. I didn't feel like it, but once you just step over that line, but then half an hour later or whatever it is, you just think, yes, I've done it. I really feel good. You're sweating, your mind's cleared. All the worries in the world have gone as you're running around. And I just think, you're right, it's self-esteem and a sense of achievement that you've actually done something, and you can feel the benefit then as you build on that every day, I feel.
Absolutely. Yeah, I had a friend once say to me, have you ever actually regretted going for a run? I couldn't think of a time where I've ever regretted it. I always, without fail, it's almost like a cheat code to feeling just a little bit better. It's not going to solve all your problems, but it's going to take the edge off. It's going to make things a little bit easier to deal with, I find. And the thing I like about exercise is that it's difficult enough to be kind of like a worthwhile challenge. It's not something that's easy. It is difficult, particularly at the beginning, but it's achievable. So you can genuinely take some pride in it, and it's not kind of like a hollow pride. It's a genuine achievement.
For me, I look at when I started cycling, it wasn't, oh, let's go out and let's spend all day outside. It was, let's go out, see how it goes, little by little. Rome wasn't built in a day, so setting these little challenges, just kind of, it made it more and more bearable each time. Just like, I want to do this, I want to get to this part, I want to get to this part, see somewhere near. I was always going different routes as well, and it's just being able to kind of go out and just accomplish something. That doesn't matter how little or how small it is, it becomes then infectious. And for me, just being able to go out and go for a bike ride then enabled me to accomplish things like away from cycling and in my personal life. The thing is with mental health and depression and with myself is it's not there all the time, but you never know when it's going to come. So it's about staying kind of prepared and proactive, and having a plan, having things to look forward to, which keep me and my mental health kind of at a steady level.
I think it's really important. We've concentrated on two sports. Like, the key point here is just do what you enjoy, whatever it is. I mean, I remember a guy once when I was in the army said, "Oh, do you want to come for a spinning class?" And I thought, oh, this will be a doddle. 10 minutes into the spinning, my head was going, get off this bike, get off the bike. It was killing me. But there's thousands of sports out there. Just do what you really enjoy.
I've not done it for quite a few years now, but when I was at university, I joined the university fencing club because I was getting a little bit of pressure from my partner at the time to maybe get a little bit more active. And I was like, I'm not sure how enthused I actually was about the whole idea at the time, if I'm completely honest. But then I'm at the freshest fair and wandering around, and I see the guy in his fencing kit and with a sword, and and I thought to myself, you know what? Actually, yeah, that'd be fun. You can just kind of mess about with swords. I don't know if anyone's ever tried fencing, but charging up and down, kind of wearing that kind of full get up, it's quite a workout. But yeah, I used to come out. Well, I used to come out of training sessions, and when I did a few competitions here and there. I was never particularly good at the competitions. I never got that far, but yeah, I just always had such a buzz afterwards. I think the key is maybe for anyone kind of listening as well, who's thinking, oh yeah, maybe I could see the benefits in getting a bit active, but I can't think. I'd say give things a go. If one thing doesn't work out for you, don't be put off. Maybe trying something else.
I don't want to go away from sport, but just picking up something new is going to excite you. It's going to change your mindset of, oh, I don't want to do this, don't want to do that, to actually, how am I going to do this? How am I going to do that? And it's really good because it enables you to kind of learn not just about yourself, but something new, and just getting out there and doing something.
Getting active, it doesn't have to be about kind of sports in that structured way. Just kind of getting out, enjoying a bit. Well, it's a bit of a miserable day here in Portsmouth, where I am in Portsmouth at the moment, but get out, enjoy the fresh air. Get the legs moving, get the muscles moving.
I think the great thing, Rob, as well, unlike when I was a kid, I mean, it's on your phone, isn't it? I was just thinking of the couch to 5K thing, which is so massively, popular. Which sort of, I don't know if you've done it, but it just gets you motivated, but in a steady way, really, and it's there on your phone.
What difficulties might people actually kind of face, just in whether it's kind of physical health, mental health? I think what difficulties we think people might actually kind of practically face just in kind of getting out there, getting involved, and if there are barriers, what could we maybe kind of suggest to those people?
Harrison's documentary, I thought, did a fantastic job of looking at people who might be experiencing various different kinds of barriers to exercise.
Yeah, so it's Breaking the Cycle, and it's on YouTube, it's on Facebook, and then on social media as well. I'm sure just typing in Breaking the Cycle will be able to find it. But it was important to me that kind of to promote cycling, I didn't want to just promote me on my bike with two wheels. I wanted to incorporate the people who have disabilities that need an accessible wheelchair and a bike, a hand cycle, or something similar to be able to go out and enjoy the things that somebody who's fully able like myself can do just at my own leisure. So it was important to me to go to Liverpool and meet with Ellis Palmer, who has cerebral palsy, and learn about him and his journey with his hand cycle. He never thought he'd be able to get on a bike or use a bike, and amazingly at the start of the lockdown he just thought, oh, I'll just do it and I'll get myself a hand cycle. And the guys at Da Vinci Mobility built him a wheelchair and an accessible hand cycle so that he can go out and about, and he's done more miles than I have. Every time I see him on social media, he's out and about on his bike, and he's absolutely loving it, and he's reaping the rewards, which is the main thing. I also spoke with Vince from Da Vinci, who he had a car accident when he was in his early 20s, and unfortunately broke his spine, and is now in a wheelchair. And he represented GB at the Paralympics back in the 80s, and then he set up this company which produced wheelchairs, and it's custom made for everybody. So anybody who has kind of any disabilities or special needs, then he's able to help them get out, get on a bicycle. And it's just important that we don't just look at sports as in football, as in it's 11 guys on each team. There's so much more than that. There's community teams, there's pan-disability teams. There is so much out there now. You just need to know where to look. I think you just need to kind of find your niche. It might take a little bit of time, but I'm a strong believer that you will get there in the end.
It's very easy for us to kind of look at something as kind of, oh, right, okay, this is a barrier. You know, this is something that's stopping me from getting away. I guess it's, you know, it's important to maybe just encourage people to, maybe take a step back and reevaluate. Is it necessarily about it? Is it maybe just a case of might have to do something a little bit differently? In that period before I went back to work, going to the gym became such an important part of my kind of well-being and that recovery. Yeah, it was kind of very difficult for myself, for someone who suffered with depression, anxiety, issues around kind of body confidence, and confidence in general, to walk into a gym full of kind of big big blokes and people looking athletic and fit, and I'm wandering in. At that point in time, I still had a bit of a pouch on me.
It can be intimidating, can't it? Those environments, they can be extremely intimidating.
Definitely. I mean, and for me, kind of one of the ways around that for me was, so I made sure I joined a 24/7 gym. So at the time, I wasn't kind of working, so I would go early in the mornings or kind of late evenings when it was quieter, or just kind of I was for a long time I just kind of stuck to the machines rather than going into the free weight section, because that's where all the bigger people were in the free weight section. I felt a bit safer. So there are kind of little kind of ways around this. I know here in Portsmouth we have community groups for people that support people to get involved with activities. We have our healthy walking groups. We have community groups that can help people get involved in cycling groups, things like that.
It's funny, I often reflect on this, and I'm not entirely sure why I started when I did, and I think in my case it was probably just sheer desperation. I think I was so low that I just recognized that anything needed to change, and it was almost like it could have been anything, but I'm so glad that I chose to focus on exercise first, because as I say, I think it really has a role to play throughout recovery. I just made a decision that this is accessible. I've already got a pair of trainers. I don't need to go and buy loads of expensive gear. I don't need a membership. I don't really have any particular excuse not to do this. So I may as well give it a go. I've got nothing to lose. I already feel awful. The only way is up. So I gave it a go. And to be honest, you know, when you're unfit, when you haven't done anything for 12 years, as was my situation when I started, it was painful to start with, and it was also painful to the ego, because when I was younger, I had been a little fitter, and you know, found myself not able to run continuously for even a mile. But at the same time, I think I recognised that I was onto a good thing, and it was good for my soul, as it were. So that sustained it, and then it just grew and grew and grew, and it kickstarted a virtuous cycle where, because I had more energy, and I had that hope, I was able to find other things to support my recovery around that. You know, I think it's important maybe at this point to emphasize that exercise is not a silver bullet cure for mental illness and mental health problems.
That's true.
It's, you know, it's going to be one part of a much bigger support plan, a kind of a set of tools, if you like, that you can use to support yourself.
That's a good point.
And that was so true for me. You know, exercise didn't solve everything, but it was a starting point, and it kick-started that virtuous cycle where I could start to build and build and incorporate other things to bring me up to where I am today.
I think life is great, isn't it? You bump into people. I mean, there's a guy who literally lives 100 yards down the road, ex-army guy, lost both his legs in Afghanistan in a bomb issue. And we meet him. I met him yesterday. He said, "Oh yeah," he said, "Do you fancy going outdoor swimming?" I said, "What?" I said, "Well, I'm not really a swimmer." He said, "Well, I go at 5:30 in the morning if you want to jump in the car." And you're thinking, "Gee, man, I mean, just fantastic, you know. I mean, an outdoor swimming apparently is really good for your mental health." So, as we said earlier, there's just stacks around. It's just finding what really fits you, really. Yeah. And age is not a barrier, definitely not. There's a lot going on.
Again, tying into that, I think we need to be careful about gatekeeping around what counts as exercise.
Yeah.
Walking, for example, is going to be a fantastic way of exercising. Definitely. For many people. But if you have a physical disability that prevents you from walking, there are other things you can do as well, and that is as valid, as legitimate, and as healthy.
Yeah.
So, you know, like Steve says, there's all sorts of things that you can try. Don't be put off by the intimidating big guys in the gym. You know, they're probably actually quite friendly if you get talking to them, but don't feel like you have to be doing what they're doing to be doing exercise.
Don't feel you have to live up to anyone else's expectations. I think I would say, you know, it's you know, at your own pace, your own ability, and definitely, if you're just kind of starting, if you've not kind of done anything for a while, you know, I know the first time I went back to the gym after lockdown, I couldn't bend my arms properly for 2 days. So I probably overdid it, to be fair. But it's having that kind of patience, you know, have that patience with yourself when it comes to things like this. Do you think that maybe kind of people might sometimes put too much pressure on themselves early on? Are there any kind of maybe pitfalls we need to be aware of in terms of maybe kind of pushing yourself maybe kind of too fast too soon?
I'm the type of person that does put a lot of pressure on myself to succeed and to be active and just to do stuff. And a lot of the time it was I needed to achieve something that day, no matter how big, how small it was. I would always kind of like, I need to do something today. I need to feel kind of worthy and like my life has some sort of meaning. And I've definitely, I think one of the benefits of the silver lining of this whole experience we've had with COVID is this is our time. Like we are our own human beings. We do what you want to do what makes you happy, and stop. Like what I would do is look into the future. Where can I be in 5 years? Where can I be in 10 years? Where can I be next week? How am I going to do this to be successful? And actually, it's just doing the things and being in the moment. I think that's the most important thing. Actually giving your all to that moment, not giving your all to, I want to be able to cycle Land's End to John O'Groats next week, because it's not going to be possible. Just kind of sit back, relax, and just do things at your own pace. And I think that's where we've all probably seen the benefits in being active, is we've just gone at it at our own pace and not to put too much pressure on ourselves.
Yeah, it can be helpful to focus on the process rather than a concrete goal. You know, goals can help us to kind of track our progress, and they can give us something to work towards. But if you're focusing too much on a goal and you're not enjoying the process, then particularly with mental well-being, it's going to be counterproductive. You've got to enjoy the process. You've got to, you know, when I'm out running, I really try and focus on sensory experience. You know, the feeling of the sun or the rain on my skin. You know, what can I hear? The sensation of my feet in contact with the ground. All these kinds of things. That's so, you know, it's tying into a lot of stuff that you hear around mindfulness and really bringing yourself into the present moment and enjoying that process for what it is, because that's really where the value is.
It's a great point, that, Lachlan. You've said it 3 times. You've got to enjoy what you're doing. Just enjoy it, you know.
Yeah.
Just a quick shout out for getting a GP check. If you haven't exercised for a while, it might be a good idea.
When we were talking about barriers and problems that people might have accessing exercise, you know, I know that in a few months' time we're planning to do another episode of Let's Talk Mate that's going to focus on body issues and things like this and how that affects men. We know that, for example, with eating disorders, that often manifests in men's experiences as over-exercising. So I think for a lot of people with mental health difficulties that kind of tie in around that, it might be difficult for them to find the right balance. So I think it's important to make sure you've got support around you.
Yeah, I think balance is everything. You know, it's finding that healthy balance, and that balance for you. You know, not what anyone else says is, you know, it's, you know, that balance for you personally. The aim of these videos is to get men talking about mental health, you know, and well-being, because we're not very good at that. When we put a bit more pressure on ourselves, maybe when it does come to things like this, you know, I still have to be mindful of, like, when I go to the gym, you know, okay, yeah, I'll see someone, you know, I'll see people like shifting that amount of weight. Oh, so, you know, trying to remind myself, no, hang on, it's okay for me to go to the gym and be doing what looks like a tiny amount of weight. you know, I'm not competing with anyone. I'm just doing this for my enjoyment, my well-being. And yeah, I did wonder if I don't know what you guys think. Maybe, you know, do we think maybe can the men put a bit more pressure on ourselves when it comes to kind of sports, and is it a bit maybe more of a all or nothing kind of attitude sometimes, do you think?
I think I can only speak for myself, and as I've already said, I put way too much pressure on myself, and I've always been very kind of outspoken on mental health and how I'm feeling and stuff like that, and I'll be the first person to turn around and say I've struggled with mental health. But in the moment, you sometimes get a bit locked in, and I remember when I released Breaking the Cycle, I just felt this complete overload of emotions and feelings, and everybody was congratulating me, saying, well done, you're doing so well and stuff like that. But in fact, I actually wasn't, and I didn't speak to anybody about it. I continued to do my therapy, continued to talk to one other friend who knew what was going on, but ultimately I felt like I was lying to people, because I've just put out this documentary about how to improve your mental health and stuff like that, and I'm actually still there, depressed, having breakdown after breakdown. But it's important to keep reminding yourself that everybody else deals with it. They may not deal with it in the same way, but everybody else is dealing with their mental health. And I've been so surprised by just the people I've spoken to who have told me their story. I think people have more in common than they let on. And actually, if you have two people who are able to engage honestly and openly, you get so much benefit from that. It's not going to happen with everybody, and it won't happen overnight, but there are people there to talk to. Maybe that would be friends, professionals, or just the person in the street. I've had countless people, when I'm having rough days, people come across me in the street, and I've had some really good conversations with people in my most difficult times, which have really helped me. So I think it's important to engage with people as much as you can, and to be direct and honest.
Yeah.
Look, nobody's going to turn around and say, "Oh, why are you talking about your mental health?" Because they have a mental health as well. Everybody has a mental health, whether that be positive or negative, at whatever moment it is. It's important to keep talking about it and keep this conversation going.
So I do this for a living. I talk about mental health for a living, but I'm still a work in progress. I still have I still have those kind of those days where it's a bit more difficult. And I've been talking about kind of going to the gym, but I know, realistically, I've been a bit naughty. I've slacked off the past 2 days.
You've got to have a rest week from time to time.
Don't beat yourself up about it, Rob. Don't beat yourself up.
Yeah. So,
I haven't been on the bike this week either.
So yeah, definitely an important kind of point there for anyone watching. Yeah, be kind to yourself. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming in and taking part today. Any kind of closing thoughts, really, before we sign off on this episode?
I just wanted to touch upon that little chat we had then. We're open and honest. Look, we've both had kind of days off this week, and it's probably the biggest smiles I've seen amongst us. Just actually having an honest conversation, and that is the proof's in the pudding right there. Like, we need to have real conversations, because having real conversations allows you to be human. There's no point not lying, but not telling the truth. Just be open and honest with everybody. And I felt better because of it, and I'm sure you guys will feel the same.
Yeah, I think Harrison just said it. My final message would be, you can do this on your own, but it's going to be far easier if you can just pull in a mate, or pull in a couple of people to get alongside you and to share your feelings and how you're doing. So it's a hard road if you're doing it alone, but try and get along bring some people into this, and you'll find you mix and you share, and it's much easier.
Definitely, and building on that, help is available. So if you want to, or if you feel like you need some support, maybe from a professional service or from a charity, indeed, then you can contact Solent Mind. You can go and see your GP. You can make a self-referral to iTalk or your local IAP service. I know in Portsmouth it's Talking Change. In Southampton it's Steps to Wellbeing. So there's lots of different ways that you can get support for your mental well-being in general, and exercise, as we've talked about, is just going to be one tool in supporting your mental well-being.
So I know, obviously, Solent Mind, really kind of a Hampshire-based charity. So I know kind of, but we might have people kind of from outside of Hampshire watching the video. Solent Mind can potentially kind of, support people to access, community-based groups, exercise-based groups. Or we have other organisations here in Portsmouth that do a lot of kind of stuff around, mental health and getting active, possibly in the Southampton way as well. So if anyone's kind of watching this and thinking, actually, I fancy kind of getting out there, especially as restrictions are starting to ease a bit more, and hopefully, fingers crossed, the world's starting to open up out there. But maybe, they're a bit worried about, okay, there's some physical health issues, or there's this kind of, really want to get out, but there's, a lot of anxiety, just kind of that confidence is lacking. Yeah, maybe don't be afraid to do a bit of research, Google, talk to your GP. You never know what might be out there, and what groups and what individuals may be out there who may be able to help you. And thank you so much for taking part, everyone. We'll be back with another episode of Let's Talk Mate next month. So I believe that's going to be around Dad's mental health next month. So thank you for Harrison, Stephen, Lachlan for coming in. Please do guys, if you're interested, please do kind of check out Harrison's documentary. If check out Breaking the Cycle. Well worth a watch. Really powerful stuff. Yeah. Thank you everyone for coming along.
Cheers, Rob.
Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
And
Thanks, guys.
we'll look forward to see. Yeah, and we'll be back with next episode of Let's Talk Mate next month. Take care.
Cheers,
all.
guys.
Cheers.
Cheers.